It was revealed to me in a dream.
Ocean, the land demands a tier list.
I knew it must be done. By your will, my lord. Hey guys, today we'll be ranking the 6 starting races of Songs of Syx. We'll be looking at each one completely by themselves, meaning a monoracial society without slaves. We'll see how their strengths and weaknesses apply throughout the 3 stages of the game. I've defined the early game as feeding and increasing the population, establishing trade, and likely defending from the first raid. This would probably be from when you first start off to the Pontex population of 75 to 139. The mid game, I would say, is defending from raids and completing your own, establishing law, and usually ends once you unlock admin and take your first world map region. This means it would end around the Quarry level. So a population of 500. Finally, the late game is all about an active deterrence strategy, expanding your lands in the world map, and diversifying your economy. This is pretty much every level after the Quarry, so 500 plus population, something like that. Keep in mind, I do have a bias towards the late game because it has no definitive ending and lasts as long as the player wants or until they lose. So up first, at the bottom of our tier list, in the Peasants of Syx tier, are the Tilapis. So it says here that they're excellent woodcutters, excellent herders, excellent range combat, and they can be violent, they dislike other species. That's pretty much it. That's what it says when you first load into the game. If you look into the Tome of Knowledge and then read about them, this is what you see. They are a very good early game and starting race. They can live pretty much anywhere that's forested. Their main religion is Cretonians, which is pretty easy to fulfill. And then here, the fruit preference. They have a bonus to producing all of these, pretty much, except for eggs. Scroll down, they really like pastures and fruit orchards. You can see through the fulfillment there. And their skill is pretty good as well with pastures, except for the lizard one. They're also pretty good at woodcutting, they just don't like it. Same with bow making, they're good at it, but they don't like it that much. As for the buildings, they like being outside and they like wooden buildings. This is very easy to fulfill. Housing furniture, they like a lot of wood. It's pretty easy to come by all of these. They actually enjoy cannibalism. I don't know, like pretty sick. But what that means is you can just set up a cannibalism spot. They'll just feed themselves. If you somehow like can't set up pastures for some reason, you like messed up or something, do this and they'll even like it. So if you're starving as them, I don't know what you're doing wrong. Other things that are unique to them are they like roundness, dread, and harmony. So what that means is your building should be round and not square. You should build dire roads. And you should build a crap ton of trees everywhere. And they really like archery training. I don't think anyone else has this. They only take 4 years to become adults. And they're pretty fast. They get a bonus to archery. They make pretty good bowmen. They have high morale and they live a long time. So you train them once and you don't have to worry about them. So all of these bonuses to production is very suited to the early game when you're trying to feed your population and all that. But in late game, although they can do everything, their bonuses are all towards that early game stuff, right? You can't really diversify your economy. Like, I mean, you can, but you don't get any bonuses to it. Even the bow making, which is probably like the main thing you want to do late game with them because you have food sorted and everything. They don't even like doing that, so they'll just be upset that they're making bows. They don't like any of the advanced production like metal smelting and smithing. You can make a pretty strong army out of them. You can expand pretty far, but maintaining that kingdom, you will just have a harder time compared to the higher tiers in this list. Up next is Cretonians. They make excellent farmers, they're peaceful and submissive, easy to please, and they worship at these temples. They're bad industrialists, they have poor combat morale, and they're obsessed with food. So these guys, the Cretonians, I would say that they're even worse than the Tilapis. Now, why I'm saying that is, even though they can live anywhere warm, temperate, and they have like a single religion, very easy to please, they like being outdoors, and they like wooden buildings. The reason why they're worse is because although they're really good at farming, they have a massive bonus to it, and they love farming. They suck at making anything. They have a 50% drop to all of the crafting production buildings. That is horrible. If you're playing as just them, it's gonna be a tough time. The early game is pretty much sorted. They just feed themselves, right? You just make farms everywhere. And then the mid game, you start making ration makers as well. Your food lasts longer, you can feed your armies. Absolutely fine. The morale is a bit lower, they don't really excel, like, there's nothing here, it's pretty much average. They do only take 3 years to mature. And they have average stats all around here. As for the housing furniture, you can come by these pretty easily, except for these gems. Gems are usually super expensive and also cost a lot to dig out of the ground depending on where you spawn. It's just not worth it to give it as furniture. Like every other reasonable person, they don't like cannibalism. So you actually have to grow stuff. And with the access here, they also like round buildings. They don't like dread. But they do like harmony, so you want to put trees everywhere. You want to have normal roads. The soldiers, they don't really care about what kind of training as long as they have a bit of soldiers. Here they like stored rations, which you should probably have anyway. But late game, they literally, they just can't diversify their economy because their crafting is... They just suck at it. They have to rely on other races to come and help them out. Moving on to the next tier, which is the Nobles of Syx, we have Dondorians. It says here that they're excellent craftsmen, good but begrudging miners, hardy in combat, lawful and mentally stable, but they're difficult to please, they hate Tilapis and Garthimis, they're bad food producers, and they want to live in mountains. So if we look here, they really only like living in mountains. They hate pretty much everything else. And they especially excel in cold areas, but they can also be found in temperate. You can see that in the buildings as well. They really like mountains, and the only thing that comes close is grand buildings. The religion is all Authorism, which is pretty difficult to fulfill, I would say, once you get a temple and stuff. And their food preferences are bread, fish, and mushrooms, which are pretty diverse. It's a bit difficult to feed them, especially because they have a massive deficit to growing anything. Mushrooms would be okay, but also take up a lot of room to grow. The easiest to feed them with would be bread, but they need to find a way to get grain. But in the early game, they're definitely not going to be feeding themselves pretty easily unless you have a water source nearby. Fish would definitely be your go-to, so make sure you have water. They live for a very long time, and they don't really go insane. They're pretty good fighters, but they're no good at archery. But the biggest problem about them is that you can't grow their population outside of immigration. What this means is, if they're unhappy with you, you can't grow the population at all. You have to fulfill all of their needs. And then they have expensive tastes, like cut stone and Sithalon is pretty hard to come by. They like square buildings, and they like ore. And ore costs cut stone to fulfill, make statues and stuff. And they really like melee training. They're pretty much only melee infantry. That's the best role for them combat-wise. And they really like stored Sithalon ore, which is pretty rare as well. Rare and expensive. So they're really good at mining, but as it said before, they don't really like it that much. I would say if you don't know what you're doing or you don't have a plan, they have the most difficult early game out of all of these. But once you get past the early game, once you have a stable food production, they are one of the best. That's why they deserve to be in this tier. Look at all these bonuses to production. They can very easily diversify your economy, and they'll love doing it. And produce all of the metal you want, all of the tools and weaponry and everything, the construction materials, all of the paper that you need. Anything you want, they'll produce it well, unless it's food. But the late game, this is what you're going to be doing. You'll be taking regions on the map for raw resources, and then you'll be developing them in your capital. And Dondorians are the best at doing that role. Next in the noble tier is the Amevias. So the Amevias, they have a low appetite. They're good all around. They're hardy fighters, religiously flexible. But they must live close to sweet water. They dislike other species. They're poor farmers, and they're slow breeders. So these guys can pretty much live anywhere that has water. Oceans, sweet water, anywhere. They love fish. They love it. They love eating it, and they love storing it. They just love fish. They hate everybody. They're very equal with their hatred. They just hate everybody equally. You please them, you want to stick with just them. They are limited to warm and temperate. But look at this building preference. Mud buildings, absolutely free. You don't have to worry about upgrading your buildings until you have enough for grand buildings. You literally have no worries when it comes to building materials. You can just build whatever you want, wall-wise. You can pretty much build whatever walls you want out of mud. Costs nothing. They like eating eggs, fish, and fruit. They have the biggest bonus to fishing. They also have the biggest bonus towards growing Globdians. So they can fulfill 2 of their food preferences very easily. Now they suck at farming everything else, but that doesn't matter because they can sell the meat that they don't like eating to buy fruit. And you're fulfilling all of the food preferences very easily. It doesn't matter that they can't farm any of these because they don't even like eating them except for fruit. But like I said, you can just trade for it. So they're highly flexible. They also live for quite a long time. They don't go insane that often. They have a bit of a crime issue, but it's not that insane. They're also pretty good soldiers that can pretty much do anything. You can't go wrong with them. They're one of the best. Their housing furniture is a bit expensive. If we look at their environment needs, they just really like having access to sweet water. If you fulfill this, it's pretty easy to fulfill. You just make canals everywhere. But if you do this, they're pretty much sorted. They'll be so happy. And here as well, they really like stored fish. You'll be fishing anyway. They're gonna be surrounded by sweet water anyway because they'll be fishing by a river and stuff. If you look at the breeding, it takes 80 days, which is 5 years in this game. I forgot to mention the low appetite. They have a low appetite. So you can fish as much as you want and they'll eat like a lot less than other people would. They're free. They're the best, or one of the best races. They're top tier, absolutely top tier. So overall, very easy early game, very easy mid game. And in their late game, they're also pretty good. But not the best tier, because they save the best for last. Humans are excellent scientists and managers, good farmers, have a good learning rate, but they're unremarkable in battle, they're criminal and mentally unstable, they have limited natural skills, and they're difficult to please. This might sound like a lot of downsides, but they can live anywhere, any temperature, open land, forest, mountain, doesn't matter. They love everyone as well. Any religion that you want. Bread and meat is pretty easy to come by. The buildings as well, it's pretty average. They're decent farmers, meaning they can produce grain pretty easily, mushrooms pretty easily, And in the pastures as well, they're just average at best, which is still pretty good. What this means is they can feed themselves pretty easily through the early game. They do take a while to mature to adults, 5 years, and they have a short lifespan, comparatively speaking. And they're also average soldiers, so they're all pretty much average in these stats. And the problem here is they commit a bunch of crime, and they tend to go insane. Once you're in the mid to late game, this starts to become an issue, but it's not that bad. As for the furniture, they really like access to wood, which is pretty easy to come by. And then the rest of this is also pretty simple to create, except for jewelry. They don't even care about your buildings being round or square. That's how good they are. They just care about ore, which is kind of difficult to get to. It can be whatever soldiers you want as well. And they like gems being stored. So some of these are hard to get to. It's fine because look at these bonuses to laboratories, libraries, admin buildings, and universities. The reason this is significant is because technology can improve pretty much any aspect of your kingdom, any production of it. You also need to unlock stuff using technology. They're the only people with a boost to technology, and they love doing it. This is why humans are the best. With administration buildings, you can tax any of these basic resources from any of your regions. That's what admin buildings do, and they're the only people that love doing it and have a bonus towards doing it. That's all late game. Once you unlock admin, you can do whatever you want with the world. They don't like going to university, but they're really good at being educated, 200%. If we look at this thing here under the occupation tab, they're the only people that like being educated. Every other race dislikes being educated. They'd rather be indoctrinated. Humans are the only ones that want to be smart. And that, my friend, is why humans are the rulers of Syx. Now you may be thinking, Ocean, didn't you miss a species or something? Like the Garthimis, that's what you missed? Well, my friends, these guys belong in a hidden tier. It says they're fast breeders, they have low demands, they have pierce damage in combat, they're good at mining, they're good with bolty crawlers, and they have fast movement. They have weak morale, very limited skills, and they're terrible at knowledge work. They belong in the existential crisis tier. These guys will eat you. They will turn the world into food, okay? They only care about meat and fish. They can live pretty much anywhere. The only place safe is the cold. They love mountains, they're fine with forests, and they're fine with open land. They hate everybody except for the Argonosh and the Amevias. All they want for furniture is clay and stone. This is so easy to come by. The food preference that they want is also very easy to come by. Look at this gestation period. Look at this gestation period. 16 days. That's a single year for one of these to turn into an adult. That's insane. That is crazy. It doesn't matter that they have weak morale. It doesn't matter that they have very limited skills across the board. They will eat you. Look at this. Doesn't matter that they suck at all of this. They'll have 100 to... They'll have 5 to your 1. Doesn't matter. They'll have 5 to your 1. They'll have 10 to your 1. 100 to your 1. That's how fast they breed. They don't even commit crimes. You don't have to worry about anything. They don't go crazy. They're not criminals. They have a natural armor of 2. They have pierce damage of 1. It doesn't matter. Their bad morale doesn't matter. Wherever you're hiding, they'll come for you. There's gonna be hundreds of them. They like round buildings, and they like dread, and they like these disgusting things called humidifiers. They actually look horrible. They love melee trading, and they love just stored meat. This stored meat is the corpses of their enemies, okay? That's insane. They're the only ones with a bonus to warehouses. They'll have very good logistics. They can feed themselves very easily with these fisheries and the multi-crawler breeders. They don't have to worry about eating. You don't even have to worry about furniture. They'll dig that stuff out of the ground very easily. It doesn't matter that they have a 75% skill with metal smelting, a 75% skill, a 60% skill with carpenters. That doesn't matter because they'll have more people than anyone else. That's why they belong in their own specialty here. Existential crisis / the world is food. And that is the tier list. Authorized by Oshan Man of Oceania.